Welcome to this video which shows you how to add colour to a sketch using Photoshop. So it might be that you're using a picture which is already online. It might be that you've drawn a sketch yourself and you've got to photograph it and put it on your computer. Either way, the method is the same. So I've picked a picture of a drill here off the internet. You need to save that image to your DT area. Ideally, what it does initially is it downloads it to your downloads folder. There it is. In fact, let's just work straight from the downloads folder in this instance. We need to open up Photoshop. So we go down here and we go to Adobe CS6 and we click Adobe Photoshop CS6 and it opens up. You need to create a new canvas first of all. So we're going to go File, New, and we're going to change the preset, and you're going to select an international paper size. We're going to choose A3. There we go. Might be that you've got a landscape image, in which case you need to go to Image Rotation, and then you select one of these. As it happens, my image is portrait, so I'm going to go back to Image Rotation, and I'm going to put it back where it was. Before we go any further, save your file. It's called Untitled at the moment, so we're going to go File, Save As. Find your DT folder, wherever that is. Mine's in my home drive, and there it is, DT. There's the one I had to go at earlier. I'm just going to call it Drill Sketch 2. Now I need to put the picture on there, the sketch on there. So what we have to do is we go to the folder that it's in, so it's in the downloads folder at the moment, and we're going to click and drag, and you see how the surrounding box goes white. You let go and there it is. So press enter, and we're going to go over here. Really important, we have to right click, rasterize the layer, and then that kind of checkered flag look disappears. So we're going to start building on top of these, and we're going to have lots of layers. So down here you click New Layer, and we are going to use the Magic Wand tool, and we're going to try and select only a certain area of this, and we're going to add colour to that area. So let's give that a go. I'm going to select the drill layer. I'm going to zoom in, and the way that there's a couple of different ways you can zoom in. You can either use the magnifying tool down here. You can click that and you can zoom in, and to zoom out you would right click zoom out, or you can hold the Control and the space bar on your keyboard, hold them both at the same time, and you click with your left mouse button and you can zoom in and out. So there's two different ways of you doing it there. For quickness, I prefer to hold Control and space. If you want to move the canvas around, just hold the space bar and click and drag. So just the space bar. Right, so let's have a look. Let's try this area down here and see if it lets us select that. So we're going to use the Magic Wand tool and we're going to click. Now it does select most of it, but you can see that there's some areas it hasn't selected. The tolerance up here, if you change that, so let's put that at 100, and we're going to click and click again, you'll see that actually it doesn't leave those little dots, but it does start selecting other areas. So the tolerance means that you've got a wider range of colours that it includes. So you have to experiment a little bit and try and find the right tolerance, or the best tolerance, which allows you to just select that area that you want. So what I want it to do is I don't want it to include past this black or grey line here. So I know it's between 30 and 40 somewhere, so let's see if we can find that. 35. Let's go 38, see if that does the job for us. No. So 36 seems to be the closest I can get, but it doesn't select everything. So what I'm going to have to do is zoom in, and I'm going to have to select those manually and add them. So we're going to use the lasso tool here, and you go down to the polygonal lasso tool. In fact, no, scrap that completely. This is obviously the unedited version of the video. Leave the polygonal lasso tool alone. That won't work in this instance. We're going to use something called the pen tool. Now the pen tool is probably the most useful tool that I've ever found with Photoshop. So it's really important that you get this right. So with the pen tool, you're going to use the control button on your keyboard quite a lot. And what it does is it allows you to add certain sections and certain areas to it. So be patient with this. It might take you a few goes, but we will get there. It's great. And what you have to do is you have to click, you're going to click again, click, and we've made a closed shape there, and all the boxes that were on the corners have disappeared. We want to select that line again, but you have to hold the control button for it to allow us to do that. So when I press control, the little cursor comes up, so hold control, click it, there we go. So it's popped back up again, so it's allowed me to select that shape. Now if you watch the cursor on this, if I move my mouse over the line, you see the plus button that appears. So that allows us to add anchor points. So I'm going to click there and add an anchor point. And the aim here is to move that anchor point to here, so that I've got a better, more accurate shape. So we'll hold control, and I'm going to click and drag that. There we go. So I've now surrounded that whole area. And if you right click, make selection, and if you add to your selection, you can see that that's now included. So just to show you that one more time, we'll get the pen tool and we roughly select around the area that we want. And then when I close this shape, watch the little boxes disappear. Then you hold control and click the shape to make it selected again. And then we are going to add an anchor point here. We're going to add an anchor point here, and you move those anchor points by holding the control button and just dragging them. Once you're happy with that area, you're going to right click, make selection, you're going to add to selection. Okay, so holding space in, and I'm just moving around and just seeing that I've got all of these done. So when you've been all the way around, we've got our selected area. We're going to come off the drill layer and come on to our first layer. So I'm going to call this layer the battery, and I'll call that red. I might as well rename this as original sketch as well to make it easier for us. So go back on the battery red layer, and we've got that selection highlighted. Really simple. There's a couple of different ways you can do this. You can either just get the paint bucket tool, choose a solid colour, and you can just add that solid colour straight in there. and if there's any bits that you have indeed missed. So you can touch in these areas, but what you'll have to do is you'll have to deselect this area that you've chosen. So you can do that a couple of different ways. You can either click select, deselect, or as it's telling you the shortcut, you can hold Control and you can press D. So I'm just going to hold Control and press D. I'm going to touch that in. I'm going to grab the paintbrush tool here, and then I'm just going to click over these bits and fill them in. So you can have a little look over it, just go over them, and there we are. So that's how you do one of the layers. Just to show you how these layers work, if you click the I button, it makes the layer disappear. You can drag the layers around, you can change the order of the layers, but obviously you're going to want this on top of your sketch because, well, you've painted on top of the sketch essentially there, haven't you? If you don't want a solid colour, there is another way of you doing it. So there is another way of doing it. I'm just going to go back and undo some of the stuff that we've just done. So I'm going to bring up the window, and I'm going to bring up the history window and expand it. Right, let's go back. Right, okay. So I've done too many steps there. Okay, so normally you can click back and it undoes certain steps, but I've done too many to do that. So we're just going to have to delete it instead. So this is what we do. Hold Control on your keyboard and click the layer here. So can you see how it's got the dotted line next to the fingers? That'll select the layer for you, and then literally just press the delete button on your keyboard, but make sure you've actually got your layer selected. Got to have the layer selected, otherwise it won't do anything. So there we go, and we've still got the selection going. And a second way you can do it is you can choose the brush tool. You can make the size a bit bigger. I'll move that out of the way, and you can change the flow rate. So you see at the moment you've got quite a, it's quite like an airbrushy style. You can reduce the flow so that it's not as harsh. You can even reduce the opacity on it, which makes it a bit less see-through. So I'm just going to undo all of those and do it properly. I'll increase the size on it. Right. Let's give that a go. Okay, and I'm going to just do over the bottom a few more times to make that darker. So if you zoom out, what it does is that way it adds a little bit of tone to it. And when you're done, you hold Control, you press D, and then you basically do the same for each of the separate areas that you've got. Once you've done all of the colours and you've added all the colours to the certain areas, we need to go around these edges and we need to make them pop. We need to, almost fine liner them. So I'm going to show you how to do that. What I'm not going to do is show you individually what it looks like with all of these coloured in. I've showed you how to do one area. It's exactly the same principle for all these different areas. So just use your imagination and imagine that I have actually coloured all of these in. I'm just going to do one to make it quicker for this video. Okay, so now we're going to just have the black lines on the outliner here. We're going to make it pop. So there's lots of different ways of doing it, but I think the simplest way of doing it is this. So first of all, we're going to grab our layer and we're going to move it underneath the original sketch so that the original sketch is on the top. We're going to select this layer, we're going to hold the control button and we're going to select that area there. So there we go. So it's popping up there. But this time we'll click on the original sketch layer, and when you press the delete button, you can see through to the layer underneath, and if we zoom in, your actual sketch bit is on the outside. So it's really effective, it's really powerful to do that. So hopefully you've made lots of notes. The aim of this is to add your colour to your different sections. You'll end up with lots of different layers, and you need to have your original sketch on the top with all of your coloured areas underneath. So that's how you do it. You'll get really quick at it once you've done it lots of times, and it's a really powerful, really effective way of adding colour. One final thing to be really wary of is if you add the colour using a paintbrush, if you do this on separate sections and you add tone on separate sections, if you don't get them similar, you're going to end up with a really dark bit there and not so dark bit there. Or you might have a really dark bit here and a not so dark bit there, and it just would look really weird, it'd look really strange. So it might be safer for you just to go with, so I'll click on the correct layer, it might be safer for you just to go with a flat paint bucket layer, so that you get that, that solid coloured layer in there. That might be a safer thing for you to actually do. Okay, that's the end of the video.